These turnovers are bursting with 4 different kinds of berries. We like to mix blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, and raspberries, and then wrap them all up inside buttery pockets of flaky pie crust. It's very easy to make our favorite pie crust. Into a bowl of a food processor, add 2½ cups of spooned and leveled all-purpose flour, salt, and sugar, about a teaspoon of each. You just want to pulse this until the dry ingredients are mixed. Now for a flaky pie crust, you want to use 2 sticks of butter and cut them into little cubes and refrigerate them until you're ready. That'll make sure that they're all very cold. And then pulse again until it resembles coarse meal. Now sprinkle 4 tablespoons of ice water over the flour and quickly pulse again. And if the dough doesn't come together, add 1 more tablespoon of ice water until the dough holds, like this. The less you mix the dough, the flakier the crust will be. Put a piece of plastic on your workstation and dump half of the dough into the center. And using the sides, pull and push that dough into a perfect square. Give it a good press, and then repeat it with the second piece. So to make sure this dough is nice and easy to roll out later, we want to refrigerate it for at least an hour and up to 3 days. You need 2 cups of berries for the filling. Use your favorite berry or combine them with others. I'm going to use a ½ cup of blueberries that are nice and plump, ½ cup of raspberries, a ½ cup of blackberries, and a ½ cup of strawberries. Now, the strawberries I'm just going to take off the top of each one, and again try to cut it so it's the same size roughly as the blackberry and the raspberries and the blueberries. So you can either cut them in half, or if they're large, cut them again into quarters. But I think halves is just fine for this. Now to sweeten these berries, because sometimes they could be very tart, we're going to take a ½ cup of granulated sugar and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. The cornstarch is going to be the thickener, so when these juices start to come out of the berries, that cornstarch is going to start to thicken them. And you want to sprinkle that cornstarch on. You don't want to clump it in one corner. Now to give this a little bit of liquid, you can take a ½ lemon. It's about 4 teaspoons of lemon juice, and just squeeze it. That's perfect. Okay. And then just give it a nice toss just to get that cornstarch to start to dissolve and a little bit of that sugar to dissolve. Now I'll let that macerate while we roll out our dough, and then I'll come back and give it another toss later. So then on a nice flat surface, just sprinkle a little bit of flour. We're going to make 6 at a time because it's easier to handle. And you want to roll it out to a rectangle that's about 12 by 8 inches. A little flour on top. And remember to always roll in one direction. You can just use a rough measurement. You don't have to be that exact. But the more care you take in rolling these out into squares, the nicer they're going to look, especially if you're serving them side by side. Okay. Okay. So now just trim it ever so slightly. And I like to use a pizza wheel to trim my dough. It goes very quick and it's easy to use. And then right down the middle, and then in thirds this way. And you roughly have 6 4-inch squares. Transfer these to our baking sheet now so that when they're filled, we don't have to move them again. The first thing I do at this point is to fill them, and you don't want to put in too much because then it's going to be hard to fold that dough over. So you just want to make sure that you get a little bit of every berry in there. Now remember, I have 12 turnovers. We're doing 6 at a time. All right, and now, most important part, not too much egg wash. Just enough to act as a glue. If you have too much egg wash, it's going to actually work against you, and the dough will not stick. Okay, and now let's fold it over and give it a nice little pinch. Try to handle the dough as little as possible because your hands are warm. Okay. For the finishing touch, we just do, again, very little egg wash. And we like to cut a little vent hole so when those berries start to steam, the steam comes out. If the steam has an escape route, that's the best way of keeping the dough nice and crisp. Okay, now these are going to go into a very hot 425-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes. Once you taste how buttery and juicy these are, you'll want to make a big batch of them and store them in the freezer for a quick, delicious pastry treat anytime. They are very tasty.